Good morning.
Good morning.
Once again, we are here at Interfaith New Thought Spiritual Center Worldwide, where we know nothing happens by chance, that everything is by divine appointment, that we heard the call and we answered that call this morning. Our theme for the month is practical spirituality. And I want to say, what else is there? If it's not applicable to our daily life, then it's sounding brass and a tinkling cymbal and goes nowhere. We want something that we can anchor into the very fibers of our being and know that we, in this foundation, that we can go forth into life and we can feel that strength, that beauty, that balance, that wisdom, and the energy that allows us to fulfill our destiny. And if we are not fulfilling our destiny, that is that energy that comes in that we call depression. Now, I'm doing a series on the power of now on my Wednesday night live, Spirit, Mind, and Body Connection. And Eckhart Tolle wrote The Power of Now, and it was revealed to him in a vision. But he said before that, he was in academics, and he was doing very well in academics, and he went into a deep, deep depression that he was not fulfilling his destiny. There was just a lot of stuff going on in academia, a lot of judgments and a lot of looking outside oneself. And he said he was just not relating, and he just went into the very depths of depression. And he said he would hear this voice in his head. And he would kind of fall asleep with this voice in his head about how depressed he was and how terrible it was. And he went to sleep one night, and this light, this energy entered into him. And he could see. He said, I could see through, and I could move through the voice in my head that was depressed and that was allowing me to be almost suicidal. And he said, I got up from my bed, and I was transformed. Now, the Bible says, be not conformed to the things of this world. There's a lot going on in the things of this world that we could be conformed to. And we see it in that mass consciousness. Be not conformed to the things of this world. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And that when we open ourselves up for transformation, it's interesting, a lot of times everything falls apart. We think, here I am a spiritual person, it's all falling apart around me. But as cliche as it sounds, it falls apart so it can fall together at a higher level. And some things need to crumble. Old forms pass away, but the truth, the energy of light never passes away. It is the eternal verity in life. So when we look at practical spirituality, today's topic is God will meet you where you are. And if you're feeling depressed, God will meet you right there. If you're feeling in a state of bliss, God will meet you there. If you're feeling kind of ho-hum, God will meet you there. It's through our willingness to grow and to unfold. Dr. Ernest Holmes in the Science of Mind textbook wrote, though I see the drunk lying in the gutter and the saint kneeling at the altar in ecstasy, I will see no difference, for each are expressing the one life in their own tongue. Think about it. Though I see the drunk lying in the gutter and the saint kneeling at the high altar in ecstasy, I will see no difference, for each are expressing the one life in their own tongue. God will meet you where you are. If you're the drunk in the gutter, God will meet you where you are. If you're the saint at the altar in high ecstasy, God will meet you there. Wherever we are, God is. There is no spot where God is not. Yes, that's right, because God is within us, operating through us. We are the vehicle of this expression. We are co-creators with God. And the ground of being is love. And when we vibrate in that energy of love, everything unfolds out of that. It's amazing how that works. And if you want to know if you're an ego, if you're not in joy, you're an ego. And the ego is always judging stuff and in fear. And it's just so fascinating how that fear can take us over and swallow us up. But when we take a stand and we look this, whatever it is, in the face, Dr. Holmes called it a discordant fact in the face, and deny its apparent reality, it disappears in the natural process of life itself. It is only the life and the energy that we give to it. And when we give our power away to it, it can swallow us up. But when we take a stand, and the light penetrates the darkness, and the darkness comprehendeth it not, and shadows flee away forever and ever and ever. Because the light comes up and illuminates the darkness. But the light is within the darkness. And when we used to sing that little song, "This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine." It is the light that gets brighter the more we pay attention to our spiritual life, making higher choices, and not allowing ourselves to buy in to race conscious belief. What is race conscious belief? The prolific negative thought of the ages. And we just, you could be watching television. Oh, have you gotten the flu yet? Oh, I think not yet. We are just welcoming that energy. And I don't watch television. I have my things on my iPhone, but I don't watch the news. And I can see through the appearance, the effects, and the energies that are going on, that have been going on for centuries, without having it also in my face. So it's good to know what's going on. It's good to have awareness so that we can know the truth about what's going on in the world, but not buy into it, not be swallowed up by it, and to put certain grassroots things in place so that we can do something about it. We're not ostriches. We don't put our head in the sand and act like it's not going on, because we know it's a fact. It's just not a spiritual reality. Charles Shedd, who is a pretty renowned author and counselor, said that one time he and his wife were in this conflict, and it just sort of went on and on and on, and they just couldn't get it resolved, and it just went on and on. And he said he was leaving for work, and he saw a little post-it on the counter, and it said, "Dear Charles, I hate you. Love, Martha." So out of that, he got it. At that moment, she was not pleased. But guess what? Love, Martha. That she still loved him no matter what it was. That we go through these little love-hate moments in our lives, but the love is the strongest healing power in the universe. And we can, especially if you've raised kids, they love and hate you, with monotonous regularity as you're raising them. And it's really fascinating how that works. So we just cannot take it personally. And conflict, it's all part of life. It's like the chaos. Barbara Marx Hubbard, who used to speak for me quite frequently in San Diego, was on a documentary on Gaia. And he said, the interviewer said, all these things going, climate change and race relations and marches and all of this stuff going on the planet. And she said, yes, and I believe this, and I have said this. It's my observation as well, that things bubble up so they can be dealt with. They bubble up and out. And once they bubble up, then we can what? Identify it. And look a discordant fact in the face and deny its spiritual reality and put in place what needs to be put in place. And when we put the things in place that need to be there is an opening. It's an amazing opening. And when we really understand that, then when we hear, like with Eckhart Tolle, the little voice in our head, that's not presence. That's buying into something outside of ourselves. Presence is living in the eternal moment. This moment now. And when we live in the eternal moment and allow it to unfold, this is the space of miracles. And when we have our experiences in life, they're just that, aren't they? They are experiences. I believe that they're not bad and they're not good. We put bad and good on them. But if you look at your life, some of the most challenging moments are the moments that we grew, that we allowed ourselves to unfold. And as through the unfolding process, something begins to happen. And one of the analogies that Eckhart used was when people said, oh, I wish I was Oprah. And he said, you know, if they were Oprah, suddenly they wouldn't be able to go to the coffee shop, they wouldn't be able to go shopping, they wouldn't be able to go out into the world without being mobbed. That everything they do now has to be very structured, so that even being Oprah isn't fun. So when the little voice in the head starts looking outside itself, and believe me, I've been in public life a long time, and I know that I have been projected upon many, many times. My colleagues used to say that in the ministry, the first year they worship you, the second year they criticize you, and the third year they ostracize you. It's like, it's a game called Kill the Leader. And when we get it, that we can't take anything personally, that, and I did, believe me, in the 44 years of my ministry, those first few years, you know, I'd find myself just crying and just, you know, how come, you know, my board of trustees, they're not practicing this way of life. And a colleague said, when someone doesn't feel powerful, they get on a board. And when they get on a board, now they're powerful. They're going to let their word, you know, and their way be known because they don't feel powerful in their lives. And we know that's not the, you know, always the way, but I have, in this 44 years of my ministry, I have seen it happen. And the fact that we cannot take it personally. And if we do take it personally, it's because we have something to learn, that we have a growing experience. Reverend Perry and I met this week, and Reverend Perry does work in Africa, in West Africa. And he's got this beautiful CD album, and he's African American himself. And this is, incidentally, for our viewing audience and all of us here, this is Black History Month. And I had the distinction and the honor to, in 1993, to be on the Sisterhood Bridge with Coretta Scott King and sit with her, and we had lunch together, and it was just a very wonderful day. And I felt, you know, listening to the unfoldment of raising kids by yourself, and, you know, just coming together. I was widowed at a very young age myself. And I remember her saying that she wouldn't let the kids play with G.I. Joes, and they were just really upset with her. But then after their father was assassinated, they got it, that arms are for loving and hugging and coming together. And I know that we have in our audience, we have, including Dr. Clayton, some Vietnam vets. And I had a dear friend when I was in high school that when I went to the Vietnam Memorial, I'm getting it out, there was his name, you know, in this list. So energetically, you know, what we've been through as a species and men, you know, that have gone to war, and the women that have gone to war, and especially when it hits close to home. And that's why I think I'm such an advocate for world peace, is that I was raised in domestic violence. And I know that if we're going to have peace in the world, it begins with our song, Let There Be Peace on Earth, and let it begin with me. With God as our Father, united all are we. And when RJ went with me to videotape in Africa, because, you know, every year for 10 years I spoke in Africa to 25,000 students and faculty. And he was in tears because we went to a mass and they were dancing, doing their tribal dances, and their energy was so loving, and everybody, you know, was hugging one another during the time of acknowledging one another. It was a completely different energy in Africa, and they had me speak. Now, you know, I was Catholic at one time, and I'm a graduated Catholic, and they actually had me speak in the Mass. That would never have happened in this country, ever. And, just enfolded us in this energy field that was so beautiful. So when we understand our oneness that moves beyond color, race, creed, sexual orientation, that oneness that lives and moves and has its being at the center of our one life, that yes, I take a stand for world peace. I've certainly lived through domestic violence, and my sister took her own life. So I know what that can do. And I feel that peace is our natural state. I really definitely and deeply believe that, or I couldn't do what I do. And in the 44 years of my ministry and standing before you here today, and to acknowledge that God has met me where I was. And that wherever we are in our lives, God meets us in the foxhole. God meets us over here in the shopping line. God meets us over here when we're feeling doubt and we're feeling intimidated and we're feeling fearful. God will meet us wherever we are. We just have to open our arms and to acknowledge there's a power and a presence in the universe greater than we are. And we can use it. So Reverend Perry went to West Africa and he created this beautiful CD about slavery and the good that came out of it. And he said to me, what good do you think came out of it? And I said, I have a lot of wonderful black friends that wouldn't be here if they hadn't brought them over, and what a way to learn and to go through such horrendous experiences. But that is the very foundation in which they spring forth and make a difference. So in that way, he said, you're the only one that has ever got it. He said, when he asked that question. And when we recognize Black History Month and our Black brothers and sisters and the difference, how really empty our lives would be without each other, that we're drawn together through our similarities. We only grow through our differences. And when I was in 9th grade, I had a dear, dear friend named Rose, and who was Black in our school at San Fernando Junior High. And when the Civil Rights Movement hit, she wouldn't speak to me. And I said, Rose, what's going on? And she said, well, I can't. My mom, and Dad don't want us speaking to white folks. And I said, well, that I love you. And I was devastated. So this is what we've come up through. I mean, it's been amazing and still going through it on many, many subtle levels. Very subtle levels. So when we get it at a deep level about our oneness, that the color of our blood courses through our veins, regardless of color, race, creed, or sexual orientation, we are all one because God meets us where we are. And that when Eckhart Tolle, he said that when he had no money and he was like really desperate, he went into a casino. I don't think it was Palm Springs. And he threw the dice, and he said, all right, he gave like a little test to the universe. If I win, I'm going to continue my work. He won $1,000 in a throw of the dice, which was a sign and a symbol from the universe that he's to continue on in his work and leave academia and write the power of now. And he said he had a little post-it, he drew a circle, and he wrote book. And then he envisioned the difference that this book was going to make to the world. And it's the longest standing book that's ever been on the New York Times bestsellers list, ever. It is an amazing book. And I go back to it every year because I just think, here it is, Science of Mind, with really practical applications that we can use in our daily life because God meets us where we are. And when we understand that, there is a portal that opens that we walk through to the other side and we say, thank you, God. It sometimes seems like a long time coming. It seems like, is this going to be forever? And we have to keep envisioning. happiness, joy, and energy. We're the frequency holders, the frequency keepers, to keep that frequency high. There are all those that go out and make a tremendous difference, but there are also those who are the frequency keepers. These are the keepers of the flame, that are knowing the truth regardless of what's going on in the outer, that there is a power and a presence in the universe greater than we are, and we can use it, and we are using it every single day of our lives. So this morning, I greet you not quite as the world greets you, but with profound esteem and the recognition that we are all one. And in this oneness, we live and move and have our being, and we're all going somewhere. And where is that? Higher yet. Where? Higher yet. Where? Higher yet. Because we are in a high place, and we will not come down. None of these outer things move me. I am in a high place. I will not come down. And so it is. And I say to you, Namaste. The God in me salutes the God in you, and the God in you salutes the God in me. And if I'm in that place in me, and you are in that place in you, there is only one of us. Namaste. Shalom, the peace that passes all understanding. And God bless us, everyone. And so it is.